Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And I will speak about the way that brands are now communicating using digital at its best. I've been in the advertising industry the whole of my working life before moving to Google. So it is a bit of what I've learned during the last 20 years. So this was the landscape of media when I began. And it was fairly comfortable to move within just a few touch points. Radio, TV, print, outdoor. It was easier to a certain extent. But today, we are in a situation where digital is quickly taking over. And this has a lot of implications, right? This region, specifically, it's an amazing region. Connection here is spreading so fast. And you can see it from the numbers. I think in a short span, 2-3 years from now, almost literally everyone will be connected. And of course, there are countries within the region, like KSA and UAE, that are actually leading the pack when it comes to digital presence, digital awareness, and digital usage, above all. So today, it's a lot more complicated, or at least it looks like it's a lot more complicated. So it's better to take a step back. Otherwise, we run the risk of being confused by the thousands of options. And it's not easy. We keep learning every day because it's a new world. Every day we have new things coming up. Every day we have different platforms that are introducing different features. And for a brand, for a company, be it a small company or a big company, can be daunting. Can be, where do I begin with? What can I do to master the landscape? Because one other thing to say is digital is not something that is separated. It's not another media channel. It's the way we live our life today. So it's a lot more complicated than that. I think it's very healthy to begin by going back to the basics. So brand and consumer, how do we get in touch? How do we make them connect in a way that is meaningful for people and meaningful for companies? So there are always two approaches, right? You can see that we connect on an emotional level. On an emotional level, people have desires. They have needs, of course, and we are going to talk about them later, but they also have dreams, ambition, desires. This is a very powerful driving force. And they need to connect with brands that have their own vision, their own mission, their own desires, which, when it comes to brands, we call purpose. So at an emotional level, my needs as a consumer are reinforced by my emotional approach to a product. And I need brands that can match these ambitions, these dreams, these visions. That's why it's so important to get into consumer insights in order to understand what is our brand strategy. And today, through data, we have so many of these insights that we didn't have before. So today is actually easier to understand people at a deeper level of their core behavior. And that's why we have to craft our brand strategy based on those consumer insights. We cannot just decide, this is my brand, this is what I'm gonna do. We need to understand what people are asking of us. And then, of course, we also work with shared values that create stories. Then on a rational level, as human beings, we all have needs. And today, we are very happy to work with brands and companies that actually satisfy our needs. We have become very, very quick in assessing which product is best for us or which service is best for us. And this is what defines the product. So our product as a company must match the consumer needs more than ever. So you see, the consumer needs today, more than ever, is important to get to know very, very accurately what's the consumer journey. So where are we going to meet our customers? in the physical world, in the digital world. What does their day look like? Where are they touching base with us? Can it be on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Snapchat, or any other channel, or physically? Can it be while going through, I don't know, Sheikh Zayed Road, through an outdoor? Can that outdoor be more than just an outdoor? Can we connect with people during their day in a moment where it's meaningful for them, and in a moment where it's meaningful for our products? So it's very important that the consumer journey and the product positioning match, because this will bring shared experiences. That's why today we see also experiential marketing becoming very important, because people, they want to live the stories with the brand. They want to be protagonists. So this loop between the shared values and the shared experiences become what we call shared stories. And today stories have become important, I should say again, because a story has always been the way to sell a product to a customer. What's the story behind the product? That's how brands were born. When a product started to have a story, it was a brand for the first time, right? So these shared stories, which shape will they take? Because there are so many ways of telling stories. When I was a kid, stories were mainly books. Then they became videos. And this is where we are today. Today we see that video is growing so fast. Literally, it's taking the world by storm. In a few years, the vast majority of the bandwidth on the net will be videos. And they will be, again, the vast majority of the mobile usage. And digital will account for 60% of all video watch in a very short time span. So this is not happening at a slower rate than expected. It's happening at a faster rate than expected. So it's easy to say that brands have to be, if they want to be in touch with people, they have to have a communication which will be video on mobile. And that's why content is so important today. When we meet with the big clients in the region and with the creative agencies and media agencies, they all want to talk about content. Like, we keep hearing content is so important, we need to have a content strategy, we need to understand what is the content that we're going to pull out. But what is content then? This is something that I like to give a deeper thought, because sometimes I see brands that start producing content just because they think they have to, but there is not a clear strategy behind that. So that's why I like to define with you one simple definition of content. And I like this small excerpt of a McTaggart lecture that happened in 2013 in Edinburgh by Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey is not only a phenomenal actor, as we know him, but he's also a very refined content strategist. So let's hear what he has to say about content.
Any differentiation between these platforms will fall away. Is 13 hours watched as one cinematic whole really any different than a film? Do we define film as being something 2 hours or less? Surely it goes deeper than that. If you're watching a film on your television, is it no longer a film because you're not watching it in the theater? If you watch a TV show on your iPad, is it no longer a TV show? The device and the length are irrelevant. The labels are useless, except perhaps to agents and managers and lawyers who use these labels to conduct business deals. But for kids growing up now, there's no difference. Watching Avatar on an iPad or watching YouTube on a TV or watching Game of Thrones on their computer. It's all content. It's just story.
And this is a very nice, simple way to put it. But it has implications, right? There are two major implications. One is that today we use a lot of screens. I don't want even to call them devices. Either this can be a phone, a smartphone, it can be a tablet, it can be a desktop computer, and we're going to see many more. In reality, every one of these devices, if you think about how big the video will be in the next coming months and years, every device with a screen is just a window on content. This is how we live today. This is how you use probably your social media. You want to know stories. These can be stories from brands, stories from friends of yours, stories from your government, stories from other people, but it's all about getting in touch with these stories. So these screens are only windows on content. The second implication, which is a bit tough on brands, is that there are no more rules for your advertising when it comes to video online. Back then, again, we were used to have a very clearly defined set of rules for communication, for advertising. I'm going to do a TVC. This TVC is going to be 30 seconds or 40 seconds or 1 minute. I'm going to put it on TV where it will fight against other TVCs in a very, very well-defined arena, the TV break, which you still see today. But online, actually, people are going to consider and judge your content against all the other contents that they're exposed to. So it's not brand and content and content. It's your content as a company, as a small, medium, big, gigantic company, has to fight against latest episode of Game of Thrones, the trending videos, a cat video, whatever you want to watch, a music video. So you need to capture the attention of consumers with a relevant story, as I said. And then again, this poses a question, which is, what is a story? So storytelling was so important back then when we started doing advertising, and today as center stage importance again, is under the spotlights. And I like this definition, again, from Andrew Stewart Stanton. He's a screenplay writer, a good one, and this is what he has to say about stories.
We all love stories. We're born for them. Stories affirm who we are. We all want affirmations that our lives have meaning. And nothing does a greater affirmation than when we connect through stories. It can cross the barriers of time, past, present, and future, and allow us to experience the similarities between ourselves and through others, real and imagined. The children's television host, Mr. Rogers, always carried in his wallet a quote from a social worker that said, "Frankly, there isn't anyone you couldn't learn to love once you've heard their story." And the way I like to interpret that is probably the most greatest story commandment, which is, make me care. Please, emotionally, intellectually, aesthetically, just make me care. We all know what it's like to not care. You've gone through hundreds of TV channels just switching channel after channel, and then suddenly you actually stop on one. It's already halfway over, but something's caught you, and you're drawn in, and you care. That's not by chance, that's by design.
And this is also something I really like, because the science of making people care by design is also another way to define engagement, which is something that today we really need to consider. Again, back then, it was enough to expose people to the brand to make them purchase the goods. Today, they have to be engaged with our brands. And engagement, the bad news about engagement, you can't buy it. You have to earn it. Because people, they need to decide they want to leave your brand. So designing stories that engage people by design, again, has implications. So one is what we're going to discuss, which is the difference of importance between form and content. And the other one is how do you gain engagement? So the difference between form and content is very relevant. This guy was one of the madmen of Madison Avenue, one of the original founders of advertising, the way brands communicate. And already 65 years ago, he nailed it beautifully. So he said, what really decides consumers to buy or not to buy is the content of your advertising, not its form. And I think we all agree on this. It's easy to agree with this. But then over the years, we started to repeat the same form over and over and over again, thinking then that the form is more important than the content. But today, we are going back to the roots. That's why sometimes when I work with brands, when I work with clients, I still see we keep doing one unjustifiable mistake, or at least this is what I call what we do. We use a form of storytelling that was conceived 75 years ago, more or less, for a bulky, non-interactive appliance sitting in someone's living room, stared at by a captive audience. And this concept of captive audience is really all what brands need to understand. People are no more forced to watch the content from brands. They have to decide to do that. They disengage mentally very quickly if they don't resonate with the message. So that's why what I'm talking about here is the TVC storytelling. And it's not about the media unit. So I'm not talking about a TVC or any kind of video advertising as a piece of media unit. I'm talking about the story that we're going to tell. The problem is captive audiences, they don't exist no more. So if you could tell me an example of a captive audience, when I ask this question in a smaller meetings to people, they always come up with, okay, cinemas, which is true. In a cinema, you still have a captive audience because everybody is in the dark, looking at the screen, and not willing to stand up and go away just because it's annoyed by advertising. So they're probably going to stay there. But it's really almost the last example of a captive audience that you have. For the rest, we disengage. Even in front of TV, we just quickly disengage. If there is an advertising that we don't like, we do something else, we check our mobile, we stand up and go elsewhere, and then we watch the content that we're really interested in. So why is the lack of captive audiences so important? Because the captive audience is really the mistake. While addressing consumer, if a brand builds a 30 seconds TVC, they're just assuming that everybody will be watching that content from the first second to the last, which is not true. And when you design a story starting from this premise, sometimes you do things like putting the important informations at the end, or the brand at the end, because you are assuming that people will watch the whole thing. But today, online, we don't do this. Let me explain you why. So one of the beautiful thing about digital, and in this case, this is graphs come from YouTube Analytics. So when some of our clients, they do advertising on YouTube, what we can measure is everything. We can measure the behavior of consumers while watching their advertising. And we can learn from that, which you can't on any other non-digital medium. So what they do, if you look at the green line on the upper chart, that green line is the behavior of a TrueView ad. Now, if you watch YouTube, you know that you get exposed to these commercials that you can actually skip with a skip button. So that's a TrueView ad, is when you can skip. And the reason why we allowed people to skip after 5 seconds is because this is how you behave, how we behave normally. If we are not interested within the first few seconds, just disengage mentally. So we gave people the option to disengage with brands. And what happens here, if you look at the green line and the red line, so you start targeting 100% of your audience. And then the skip button comes in. And when the skip button comes in, they start to skip. So you see the green line goes down very quickly. And you start to lose viewers, to lose viewership, until you reach the end of the piece, where probably in this case, 5% of the audience is there. So you understand, this is not only related to YouTube or digital, this is human and is everywhere. When you design a story for your consumers, it can be a simple story, it can be a description of a product, it can be whatever you want. But whenever you design a story for your consumers, please consider that we have to reverse the storytelling we used to do. So we're not starting anymore with the build-up, with a very slow story to reveal at the end the brand or the product. We have to start from the main message and then go through deeper and deeper and deeper levels of engagement. It's a pivotal change in storytelling. It's completely different from the past. And if you look at the second graph, this is the relative audience retention. So what this measures, when we have a brand that does advertising on YouTube, we can measure the impact of that commercial, comparing that to other commercials of the same length aired in the same period by other brands globally. So if you look at the second graph from a different angle, it's just a comment on the story. So it's how much people are interested by the story while it goes. And what you can see here, this is an old school TVC. It's a story that starts in a very uninteresting way, and then all of a sudden, towards the end, starts to peak, because creatively something had happened that was interesting. So all of a sudden it's more interesting. And then it falls again, because probably after the peak of the story there are commercial informations, the brand logos, and so forth. So this is the old way of doing things that we need to understand is not working anymore online, and we need to change this. This is so important. Let me show you an example. So this is an old TVC. It starts with an intro, so the first 5 seconds are completely wasted. They're not capturing our attention in the first 5 seconds. Then there are 20 more seconds of where the story builds up very slowly. Then there is a creative event after 25 seconds, and followed by product informations and the logo. So I will show you.
2 secondes, c'est peu, mais cela peut représenter beaucoup. Chez Quechua, 2 secondes représentent 9 années de recherche dans notre laboratoire, 2786 heures d'écoute utilisateur et 18 733 heures de recherche et développement, 6 mois d'études design et ergonomie, 315 jours de tests sous toutes les conditions climatiques. Chez Quechua, nous avons travaillé ces 2 secondes pour que vous n'en perdiez plus. Depuis, nous avons développé des séries limitées pour que vous trouviez toujours une tente pour vous. Tente 2 secondes à partir de 29,95 €.
So this one looks like, I think, thousands of commercials that you can see on TV or online. And the reason why it doesn't work anymore is what I told you. So the first 5 seconds where people can actually decide to disengage is just a drop falling from a leaf. And it can be beautiful, but online people, they're not interested, so they will skip this. And you will lose a lot of potential customers because you have chosen the wrong beginning of the story. And then if they don't skip immediately, they will skip in the next seconds because there is nothing really happening. And all of a sudden, when there is an event, you can see the interest of people peaks at that point. But now, there is almost no one there to watch that moment. So it's like a stand-up comedian that cracks the best joke when the room is empty and there is only the guy cleaning. It doesn't make any sense. You want to tell people your message, the core of your message, when they are interested, not when they have left the conversation, right? So, for example, in this specific case, one way to look at a different way to tell the story is this one.
2 secondes suffisent pour présenter la tente 2 secondes. Vous pouvez maintenant ignorer l'annonce ou découvrir l'histoire de ces 2 secondes sur quechua.com. 2 secondes.
And then it starts the TVC. So you see, whoever has done this has understood the consumers a lot better than what the brand managers pretended to. So they have given them the main information immediately, and it goes like, this is an amazing tent that flips in the air in 2 seconds, is ready. If you want to buy it, click here. This is also very important. Digital means you are 1 click away from anything, from your website, from an e-commerce, from the possibility to sell directly the product, to give more information, to take an action. And yet, many times I see brands that don't give any of these options to consumers. They just put their ad there thinking it will be enough. So always put a call to action, give possibility for people to interact with your brand immediately, right? So this is a smarter way to do the same thing. So if I can go back 1 step this is the most important thing to understand the way that consumers have changed and the way that media has changed, is because we were in a non-contextualized environment, as we call it, and today everything has to be contextualized. Because when you are in a non-contextualized environment, people disengage from your brand, they skip, and they go away. Well, if you are contextual, they actually stay with you. They like your brand, they like to interact with your brand, and they like to start the conversation. Contextual means relevant for them. You remember the video I showed you earlier, engaging them by design. So if you are relevant to their day, they will be with you. If you're not relevant or not useful, they will go away. This is so important, right? So you can think of a brand that does contextualized advertising. We did a campaign for Do during Ramadan, right? And it was possible, thanks to technology, to give some messages to consumers at the right moment in time. So maybe before prayer or before breaking the fast with iftar. So it was possible to address them with a very relevant message for them during the day following their day. And that was contextualized. They felt the brand was actually following them through their fasting and their struggles and their beautiful moments, so they felt the brand was closer to them. Well, just pushing out an advertising without any context would have been just advertising. So we see this happening every day, and it will happen faster and more in the next coming months and days. For example, we have seen somewhere between 2014 and 2016 a switch in the dominant everyday behavior from TV to online, which is a big thing for the region. And it's not going back, it's only getting deeper. So people are disengaging from that old way of communication, and they're engaging with more personalized ways, mobile, most likely. And if you consider the daily amount of time that we spend in this region online, it's unprecedented. Look at MENA versus North America, the third one, or Western Europe, the last one. So this region is actually leading, is showing the world how to be engaged online. It's not trying to catch up, it's leading the others. And if you consider the MENA figure, this is the average. So imagine what only UAE and KSA would be. It would be a lot more than that. So this is also an immense opportunity for everybody here to start connecting consumers where they really are, on their mobile, watching videos. So there is a set of things that are declining and a set of items that are rising. It's not that the ones on the left are over and the ones on the right are on. It's more changing relevance, right? It's just readjusting the balance. So of course, whatever is based on passive broadcast, offline, desktop, is declining towards active choice, online, mobile. We used to talk with brands on reach and views. Reach as the main part. Today is engagement, because reach without engagement is not going to transform into a sale. So today engagement has become relevant, very relevant, coupled to reach. And we used to have so little notions about what consumers were doing, while today we know everything about it. So it's only about the intelligence to analyze data, but we have all the data that we need to understand. And we were used to having periodic media engagement. Today is an always-on thing. Brands have to communicate to consumers. It's a conversation. We all know that, right? So we need to keep talking to consumers. And we were used to having a good brand loyalty. Today is no more like that. In the past, brands were used to have loyal customers. Today, customers can change brands depending on the utility, on the usefulness. And storytelling, again, by itself, that was enough in the past, today has to be coupled with considering the consumer journey, what we call system thinking. So considering where people are, in which moment of their life story or day story, and intercept them there. So when you want to consider putting videos online, there are a couple of things to say, which is this one. Again, there are so many mythologies to debunk. First of all, everything has to be paid for. It's a campaign. it's not enough to just do a video and put it online thinking it will be shared. That doesn't happen really. So whenever you want to face advertising through video, it's still something that you have to pay for. And then sometimes there are people that start to engage with your content, and this is where they start discussing it online or sharing it or showing to others. This is where the magic happens. So engagement and organic growth is a KPI to look for. And then sometimes this engagement is so disproportionately impactful that you have a phenomenon which we call the viral. But as a brand, viral is not in your plan. So don't ever pretend that you just do a video, you put it online, it will go viral. This is not going to happen. So as a brand, as a company, you don't want to think about virals, right? They happen, but it's by chance. So when you want to work on your paid video campaign, what you want to do is to optimize it, to spend your money wisely. Today you can get online, you can have pre-rolls, you can have bumper ads. There are so many formats that you can. You can choose social media, you can choose YouTube, you can be online with a video. Just make sure that your money is well spent when you do that. And the way to do that is, for example, as I showed you before, make sure the first 5 seconds are really meaningful. Because this is where the clients will say, yes, this brand is interesting for me, or no, it's not. So don't create a big, long story hoping that people will resonate. Start with a very meaningful beginning of the story. Just to show you an example of this, look at this commercial. This is from BMW. Okay, so what you're seeing is not even 5 seconds. This is 20 or 25 seconds. This is completely wrong. This is wasting a chance to get a consumer. Because it starts with, if you think about the first 5 seconds, what you see, it's only this. Right? So if you can skip this ad, you will probably do it. And even if you don't, and you keep watching, all that you get is just a basic sense of performance, which is not a unique selling point for this kind of car. Performance is a given. So you don't use wisely your communication. This is an old story. And look how it keep on going. So after this first 25 seconds, this is what happens next. So you see, it's a complete different story. So before you get to the real, now this is interesting, because all of a sudden there is a story, there is not only the performance, but also extreme control. It's thrilling, it brings value to the brand, it's a lot more interesting. So this is an example of how you don't do things, because if you do like that, and you put this ad online, nobody is gonna watch the very interesting part. So please consider not only, as I said, on YouTube, if you're going to do video advertising, but whatever kind of advertising you do, be meaningful for consumers immediately. Don't wait. Then there are a few charts that I will skip. And then it comes the real interesting part. I think that many of you are starting from the presentation that I've seen in the agenda. They're starting to be active on social media, right? So if you are active on social media, what you want to do is you want to reach that social engagement. Now, to reach that social engagement, which is the middle part of this chart, this is the formula for me. The most important thing is to hit a relevant tension point. This is the only reason for people to talk about your communication, to share your message, if that message is hitting a tension point. A tension point is not a passion point, is not a product point, is not a tactical or practical thing. It's called tension point because it represents something that in your life has a deep meaning. Let me give you an example. Someone has just changed from being, for example, a husband to be a father. That difference changes your mind completely. From the first moment you hold this little thing, you start thinking, this is so important. I need to provide health and wealth and happiness for this little thing that doesn't have ability to provide it by himself or herself. So your mind goes very, very deeply with this tension point. And even if you're doing something completely different, even if you're watching a game on TV or having fun with friends, that thought, that tension point is always there. So the moment a brand comes in your way with a message that addresses that tension point, you lit up. And you immediately want to share this message with people that have the same tension point. So this is the only formula to engage people, is to hit a tension point. And then passion points, they will help you distributing it. And maybe will give you a bit more of reach. But the tension point is what will sell the product or the service that you're offering to that person through communication.